So after the departing blessing of the Lord's Supper, that fourth aspect that models marriage and what a man is and what a woman is, we come to the last aspect of worship, which is a pattern, again, for family life. We come to the blessing that was lifted from Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 through 26. You hear the words in your mind? The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord look on you with his favor and give you his peace. Are you familiar with the historical context of where that blessing came from and why? And did you know that that tradition that's been observed in the church in worship, that goes back 3,500 years? It is an amazing tradition that we have, and it's one that was created by God. You go back 3,500 years, 1,500 years before Jesus, you'll come to the time of Moses. The time of Moses is the time where God rescued his people, brought them out of slavery in Egypt, and made them his own. And at that time, he created the priesthood. A certain group, the Levites among God's people, who were to work with God's people and oversee worship and be a blessing to them, representing them before God. And so God, after establishing the priesthood, said to the first high priest, Aaron, Moses' brother, I want you to bless the people when you guys gather together. And that's where it began. The representatives of the church, public ministers of the gospel, blessing God's holy, universal priesthood of believers, a nation that was his. We carry that tradition out today. We have pastors called ministers of the gospel who at the end of services proclaim to God's people a blessing. Now, how cool is that to know from Ephesians 4 that God has designated certain people called by his own people to be of encouragement to them, to walk alongside them, to assist them, even as they go through that hour of worship and, well, live out their lives in worship to God with every other hour. How neat is that God would so love you that he's called certain people to publicly serve you to the glory of God and for your betterment. So here's a question then as we consider that blessing at the end of the service. What is the work of called workers? What can they do and what can't they do in regard to, well, the discipleship of your own children? That's kind of a question I'd like to present as an exercise for our purpose here. We would do well, and this is a critical question to answer for the sake of our families, for the sake of youth. What is the public ministry's role in the life of your family? We think about pastors and teachers and staff ministers. We think about the local congregation and youth ministry and a school if you have one. How effectively can they disciple children in the Lord compared to, well, your divine callings as parents, the first pastors and apostles of the home, as some have said? Do this. Take a moment and, again, if you're on your own, write out where a pastor or teacher's or staff minister's work ends and where you, a universal priest called by God, called out of darkness to proclaim his praises, especially in your capacity as a parent. Where does your work begin? And conversely, where does your work end and the pastor or teacher's or staff minister's work begin? Wouldn't you agree that we would do well to understand the nature of that partnership? As you consider that, how best your children are discipled, learn of the Lord, and train in the Lord, are equipped to go out into the world then later on as adults to serve the Lord. What's the nature of that working relationship? Take a moment, and if you're working with others, share your thoughts. How do we best disciple children? What does a called worker do? And what does a parent? What do they do? And then when you're done, after pausing this video, come back and we'll have our summary truth. If we want to retain our children, we have to get that question answered right. We need to know the working relationship of pastors and parents, teachers and parents, staff ministers and parents, youth leaders and parents, the role of the local congregation, the limitations of the local congregation, and to ensure that the local congregation and its called workers are truly a blessing in every way that God designed for families and vice versa. And if I can be honest with you, we may have fallen into practices today and in generations past for, hundreds of years maybe, where we've gotten the lines blurred. Sometimes we think that all it takes to disciple a child is to maybe outsource them to the professionals, the called workers. But that's not true. The best discipling that takes place is in the home, because faith is homegrown. We as called workers would do well to champion parents and lift them up all the more, not usurping their authority or their calling, which would be, of course, unintentional, but, like the assistants to Moses, raising up your hands for the work that's before you. So we need to answer that question, and we won't have time to do that right now. But that's the fifth module for Solid Ground. Found. How does the church come alongside and bless you, parents, who are paramount in the discipling of children, your own children? You see, the partnership, you're primary, and we are assistants. You're the superhero. We're the sidekick. And I can't wait, to review that work with you in that fifth module. So come back, join us for all those different presentations of Solid Ground, which is what's next. We'll actually take a look at the first module in the next upcoming video. Please join us for that. We're going to review what does it mean for Christ to claim our households, our families, and what other influences are maybe good, neutral, maybe not so good, that could get in the way of that. So that's our first module that comes next, claim. But for now, I just wanted to thank you for joining us for the critical hour. I pray that as you consider worship, that 1 hour a week, that you see in that beautiful hour how it's been designed to rescue your family, and that it is a pattern for how we can live our family lives. God bless your families. May He empower you to lead them to Christ. May your children always be found in Him.